Thank you for tuning in to ICT on PNC, a podcast covering issues that impact the Texas insurance industry. The Insurance Council of Texas is a nonprofit trade association serving the property and casualty insurance industry. We're proud to be the largest state-based insurance trade association in North America. Welcome to ICT on PNC.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining today. I'm especially excited to welcome Errica Rivera. Errica, you and I have crossed paths in this great industry for several years now, and I'm also very blessed to call you a friend. You are currently the Culture and Inclusion Lead for State Auto, where you've had a great career in corporate responsibility, HR, diversity, inclusion, and so many other opportunities that you have, welcomed head on. While I've shared some of your background right now, I'd love to hear more about you and your background. So give us a little bit of insight into who Errica is.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you so much for having me today. A little bit of my background, I started out in the industry, over 20 years ago. And I started out with a large organization in Columbus, Ohio. It was my very first opportunity to work with a group of individuals who worked on really just restoring and repairing people's lives. So started out in HR function and then transitioned from there into more of I would say diversity recruitment, where I worked with lots of HBCUs, and I got the opportunity to work with the syndicated radio host, Tom Joyner, who's here in the Dallas, Texas area. And that actually took me away from the industry for a while. So I worked for Tom Joyner, managing what he called his Fantastic Voyage, which was his largest HBCU fundraiser. Did that for a couple of years, and then I got the call to come right back into the insurance industry. So really been in a number of different roles. You've mentioned several of them: recruitment, community outreach, government relations. I've worked in a business partner role, but just what I call just super customer and associate service roles, where I get to serve people each and every day.
That really doesn't surprise me when you identify it as as a service role, because that's exactly who you are. And I just love that about you and your leadership. So, as we start talking about our theme today, perspectives on leadership, we're in the midst of Insurance Careers Month. So this is just a perfect opportunity to hear more about perspectives on leadership and knowing your passion for the industry, your involvement with youth and the greater community. How about we start with what exactly brought you to the insurance industry?
Well, I would venture to say that I'm like most people in my generation, at least, where there really wasn't an intentional pursuit of the industry, but just something that happened. Most like to use the expression, I just fell into it. In the mid 90s, I'm dating myself a bit here, but I was working for Coca-Cola. I was managing the Olympic torch relay, the implementation in the Midwest area. So I had all the Midwest states. Well, once the relay had passed through all of my states, a friend of mine in Columbus, Ohio said to me, you could do in the insurance industry what you're doing for Coca-Cola. And of course, you know me, Camille, I always have a joke. So I said, well, you mean you guys have an Olympic torch? And so of course she said, no, not that. But what she meant was, you enjoy working with people and brokering relationships and serving the community. All of those passions and skills are easily transferable to the insurance industry. So shortly thereafter, she introduced me to a recruiting leader, and the rest is really history.
Wow, that's crazy, isn't it? And we say we fall into things, but there's usually a reason and a journey that we tap into, and we make it ours, and that's certainly what you have done. So when we talk about leadership, tell us about that piece of the journey. Milestones, any epiphanies you had, what you've enjoyed the most, and maybe even the least.
This is a great question. The leadership journey for me has been very unique. This is probably a part of the discussion that I speak most about when I talk to different audiences. But what I really enjoy is that this industry, for me, has not been traditional. I've not followed the traditional career path. It really speaks to the diversity of roles within this industry. So I started my leadership journey as a director of talent acquisition, and that led me, as I mentioned, to a community relations officer role, and then a leadership role in Texas, which is where I met you, but really what I called a people partner back then. And then an associate facing or employee facing role, which was called associate advocacy, and then government relations. So it's just been a hodgepodge of all these interesting leadership roles. So I would say that the greatest epiphany for me was learning to appreciate the rich diversity of careers in our industry, and that career progression is not at all like a ladder that they led me to believe in college. You take one step and the next step comes next. It's more like a delicate dance, like the cha-cha slide, if you're familiar with that dance. I wrote an article about this a while back. But, sometimes I hopped forward, got those promotional opportunities, but other times I just took a quick slide to the left or to the right, which means lateral moves. And sometimes I did what was called in that particular dance, the Charlie Brown. And that Charlie Brown in the cha-cha slide is where you just rock back and forth and you wait for the next opportunity to make a move. Now, what I like about the Charlie Brown is that it may appear that I'm not moving, but if you notice, the rocking back and forth means that you're always in motion. And that's the epiphany, that my journey may not be like someone else's, and that's okay. But the important thing is to never stop moving or pursuing that continued growth. Now, I want to go to the second part, because this is another part of the question that I really like, which is what you enjoyed the most or the least. And what I've enjoyed the most is the many opportunities to learn and grow from others as a result of these relationships, like the one you and I share. I learn in every exchange because I'm really intentional about that quest for learning. Now, I'll tell you, sometimes the learning hurts because the relationships may not be as authentic as I'd hoped. But Nelson Mandela taught me something, and not me personally, but this is the quote that he said: "I never lose, I either win or I learn." And I believe the same is true with relationships. Either I win and I earn a new friend and a trusted colleague, or I learn from the exchange and just chalk that up to experience and keep moving. But the last part of your question is, what do I enjoy the least? And this has bothered me since I entered the industry to now. And I think what I enjoyed least is the constant struggle to attract diverse talent. I don't get it. This is a wonderful industry with very lucrative careers. Since day one in this industry, that's been our struggle. But I'm hopeful that we will come to a point where this is no longer our challenge, but rather a success story that we can share with others about how we overcame this looming obstacle. So that's what I would say to that question.
Wow. I'm trying to take notes on my end, and I got stuck on Charlie Brown and always and you know what? Next time I'm, listening and I'm learning that dance, I'm going to think of Errica and just keep. I just love that, because you're absolutely right. Some careers and your growth journey is not necessarily about, moving up, just vertically. It's horizontal movement is always so critical to just creating that greater breadth of knowledge.
Yeah.
You ended on something that certainly is near and dear to my heart as well, is the diversity of talent and making sure that we cast that broader net and help others recognize that they have a seat at the table.
Yeah.
I think I've had some conversations where sometimes we're the only, maybe diversity at a table, and feels great to be able to bring that life experience or that life lens, but at the same time, you just want to make sure that others are cast and brought to that table as well. So thank you so much for that.
Oh, my pleasure.
We are looking forward and, just really banking on who you are and the actionable steps that you have taken. Give me two actionable steps that might be beneficial for new leadership, or maybe not just new leaders, but maybe just leaders in general.
Sure.
Help them reflect.
Oh, two things that I would say for any leader. First, I would say look for opportunities to serve as an ally. I think we underestimate the power of allies, but look for opportunities to serve as an ally for someone. All of us have these instances where you're in the room where it happens. If you're a Hamilton musical fan, my daughter has made me a fan this summer, so I quote all things Hamilton. But in the room where it happens, and that's places where you are in the room where decisions are being made, and can successfully serve as an ally or an advocate for someone who's not in that room. I think if we can try to gravitate more towards that, look for those opportunities, and then embrace the mantra. I wear this bracelet that says, "As I climb, I pull." I look for opportunities. When I can climb into a new space or into a new room, I try to pull someone else along with me. So to use what you just said, if you're the only one, it's okay for that moment because you got that opportunity, but maximize that opportunity to pull someone in along with you. Then the second thing I guess I would say was to remember that you're inimitable. And I think that's a word that we all know, but we don't use it often. But inimitable means being so good or so unique so as to be impossible to copy. So many of us as leaders, we spend our lives attempting to emulate or copy someone that we deem to be a successful leader, not realizing that the true secret to your success is like mastering the art of being yourself. Abraham Lincoln had this quote, I love quotes, but he said, every man is born an original, but yet sadly most die copies. So that's my second recommendation is to master the art of being yourself and be comfortable in your own skin. Avoid that temptation to mimic another's success because you'll fail miserably every time. So, you have something that no one else has. And that secret is the individuality that you are. So I say brew it and do it. So that would be my two.
Wow, we're coming away with another Errica quote, the brew it and do it. You know what? So many reflections I'm taking away from our conversation, Errica. Well, I thank you so much for that. That is just that is authentic Errica, and those of us who have the pleasure of knowing you, that is definitely authentic Errica, and I appreciate that.
Oh,
As we bring our conversation to a close today, one of my favorite things about working with you is that we work together on the ICT Education Foundation.
Mhm.
Anything you'd like to share on the next generation of professionals?
Absolutely. I spoke a little bit earlier about overcoming the challenge of attracting diverse talent to our industry. And I'm so grateful for organizations like the Insurance Council of Texas Education Foundation, where your mission is really based in supporting a diverse array of students with interest in pursuing careers in our industry. So I think my final admonition would be to find a way to get involved in organizations like this, either through volunteerism or through financial support. And when you find a way to give back, that's just another way of living that mantra I talked about earlier, as I climb, I pull. As you climb your way through this industry, building relationships and professional career success, find a way again to pull someone along with you. Got one more saying that I'll share with you. And I try to live by this. It's an old African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. You can go together through partnerships like that with the Education Foundation, with this invaluable future facing process. So get involved now. You don't have to wait for someone to extend a formal invitation or a specific giving opportunity. Just actively seek out opportunities to give back and get involved. And the personal high that you'll get, better known as those happy chemicals to the brain, it'll be well worth it because you'll feel so much better about yourself and the future of our industry if you do that.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much today. We walk away with a breath of inspiration and just so much to think about. Errica Rivera, I thank you so much. I congratulate you on a wonderful career and impacting the future and the next generation of professionals. And I just hope that you will join us on a future podcast. Thank you again, Errica. Any last thoughts?
No, just thank you so much for having me, Camille. I always learn so much from you. Even when you feed back to me something that you've heard me say and I don't realize I've said it. But you just have this wonderful spirit about you. So thank you so much and all the best to you as well.
Likewise. Thank you, everyone. And thank you, Errica. Have a great day.
Thank you for listening to this edition of ICT on PNC. Find us online at insurancecouncil.org for more information about our organization or about the property and casualty insurance industry in Texas.